So, a couple of weeks ago we had D23 Expo, and it was pointed out at the time, Kathleen Kennedy barely had a presence. I think she was there for the Disney Legends ceremony, but we didn't see much of her and we didn't hear much from her. And there have been reports for a few months now that she's close to stepping down. But a brand new article from Bespin Bulletin has just given us some clarification. Kathleen Kennedy will reportedly remain as Lucasfilm president until at least Q2 of 2025. So there is a possibility she steps down afterwards, but we've been saying this for years. They say this: rightly or wrongly, the president of Lucasfilm is always a topic of discussion among Star Wars fans, with questions usually raised as to whether or not Kennedy's tenure should continue. A lot of fans seem very frustrated with her continued presence and direction at Lucasfilm, and this subject usually sparks a lot of debate. There have been rumours from typically unreliable sources that she is going to step down very soon, something that's been frequently in the rumour mill for about 7 or 8 years. Currently, Kennedy is under contract until later this year, following a 3-year extension signed in 2021. And today, Bespin Bulletin has news that might come as pretty upsetting. First broken by industry insider Jeff Snyder, Kathleen Kennedy is expected to remain as Lucasfilm president until at least, that being the key term, June 30th, 2025. She's overseen the release of the sequel trilogy, Rogue One, Solo, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. In addition, Kennedy was also instrumental to the early success of Disney+, but there have been fan concerns for a decade that she's not suited for the job, that her leadership has led to a decline of the Star Wars brand. So for those hoping she was going to be out as soon as possible, it looks like she's going to stay put and remain in the position until next summer at the very least. It's likely to be even longer, and it's worth noting she's still going to executive produce The Mandalorian and Grogu, coming out May 22nd, 2026. Now, if you think back to a couple of Wednesdays ago, there was a rumour swirling around that Kathleen Kennedy wants to go out on a bang. She wants to leave Lucasfilm with one final win. I think we all want Star Wars to succeed, and at this stage I think her legacy has been written. Definitely not positive in the eyes of most Star Wars fans, so let's see how fans reacted to this specific news. This disappointed Mace Windu emoji pretty much sums it up. She must have dirt on Iger because it's truly baffling the amount of cataclysmic disasters she can spearhead yet still stick around. One person says was hoping it said Q4 of 2024. Oh no, my friend, this is next year. All the YouTube haters reading this who'd been having a good time recently due to the Acolyte cancellation, that's not true, that's impossible. So yeah, I can't see Star Wars fans being too excited about this. While she doesn't necessarily make individual creative choices, it's more the overall direction of both the sequel trilogy and the TV shows, putting certain creatives in different positions and really shaping their overall priorities in the Star Wars franchise, whether it's Leslie Headland with what she wanted to do with the Acolyte, or even being okay with Rian Johnson's decisions in The Last Jedi, and there has been a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. So many creatives being fired, so many scripts being left up in the air, projects unfinished, writers and directors separating with Lucasfilm due to, quote, creative differences. And all of these incidents contributed to the perception that Lucasfilm was in disarray under Kennedy's management. And then there's the overall criticism of the Disneyfication of Star Wars, that has left fans feeling as though the franchise has become too corporate, formulaic, and just pumping out content for profit, not putting in the care and attention the shows deserve. And there have certainly been a handful of creatives and actors who've spoken out against her and her management style over the years. I'm thinking of Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and more recently Gina Carano. Now, in response to this update, Josh over at the Den of Nerds had a very interesting theory. If Kathleen Kennedy does walk away next year, are they going to line up a potential passing of the torch at Star Wars Celebration in Japan in April of 2025? Often when it's mentioned that Kathleen Kennedy is going to step down, the names of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni often come up. I don't know if Dave is going to be interested in the job, considering he's more on the creative side of things rather than the business. However, considering last year he got CCO, anything is possible. It was only a couple of years ago fans were saying Dave Filoni is the savior of Lucasfilm. He needs to be in charge, he's the only one with his finger on the pulse, and his Star Wars content is the best. We called him George Lucas's apprentice. But if you've stuck your finger in the air recently and got a good feel for the direction the winds are blowing in the fandom, you might have noticed Star Wars fans are turning on Dave. He has been a massive creative force behind Star Wars for nearly 2 decades. Setting aside the projects he's created such as The Clone Wars, Rebels, The Bad Batch, Filoni has added some of the most crucial lore inclusions to the franchise ever known. He created Ahsoka Tano, helped flesh out the prequel era, better Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side, and expanded the mythology of the Force, not to mention our canon modern understanding of the Mandalorians. But the tide might be turning. Recently there's been a shift among many fans regarding the reputation of the Star Wars creative. On social media, the negative sentiment is racking up, especially following The Acolyte. One user quoted by thedirect.com said this: "Dave turned his back on us. He's on board with Kathleen. He praised Leslie Headland," and he's talking about The Acolyte, "and signed off on this along with all the terrible decisions on The Mandalorian, Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett. He's lived long enough to become a villain. Time for an entire leadership change." Now here's the thing. I personally was a big fan of the first 2 seasons of Mando. I've been an apologist for a lot of the Book of Boba Fett, and I was even very fond of the Ahsoka show. But I definitely agree that Dave Filoni has made some mistakes. In my recent conversation with Star Force 1, I brought up the issue with modern Star Wars canon. On top of this, it is well known Dave Filoni is a big proponent and fan of Kathleen Kennedy. He's often said she is the perfect person to be CEO of this company. I don't necessarily think all of the hate towards Dave Filoni is reasonable, and I still think he's very talented, a great creative, and someone who, out of all of those employed at Lucasfilm in top positions, can continue George Lucas's vision, or as close to it as possible. It's not all been bad, but like I say, I don't know if he'd want the job, and the pressure that comes with it. And if for nothing else, setting all criticism aside, I believe Dave Filoni more than anyone else understands mythology. And then there comes the question, what is Lucasfilm going to look like under new management? There has been speculation they're going to do a massive course correction, and that person will have to decide, obviously in collaboration with Bob Iger and Disney. Is a revamping of the company going to focus on Star Wars on the big screen, or more on the small screen? There are going to be a ton of questions when the day comes. I would have one major request. Of course we want good visual content, a continuation of the animated shows, good live action stuff, good movies, but I would love a bigger collaboration with Dark Horse. I really loved the old Dark Horse Star Wars comics, much more than the recent Marvel ones, and while there have been some more recent, sporadic Dark Horse Star Wars comics like Hyperspace Stories, I think Star Wars needs a return to greatness in the comic books. At the end of 2021, they announced they were going to do more collaborations with Dark Horse, and fans celebrated this, but since, it's mainly been the High Republic. And it's fair to say under new leadership, Lucasfilm absolutely needs to take its canon much more seriously. What do you guys think? And what do you make of the Kathleen Kennedy update? Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you, always.